My son lives right there on the Potomac River, so him and his wife had front center seats to the tragedy all night long. I don't know what to say about all that. I'm just extremely sorry for all of the lives lost. I wanted to focus on a couple of the lives lost that I found astounding. And I'll tell you the story of how I came to find out about the Russian figure skating pair who both perished in the accident. And I know that they've been all over the news. I know that other names haven't been released, so I'm going to be real sensitive about that. I have their names written down. They're tough names, so hold on a second. I'm bad with names anyway. How's the sound? I do have one person here. Hello. How's the lighting? How's my hair? I hate these glasses, but I'm not going to worry about it. I was just trying to come on as quickly as I could. I have 3 pairs of glasses, and these are my least favorite. But, if that's my biggest problem today, how lucky am I? Here's my thumb. Please hit that like button if you don't mind. Anna Bees is you. Everything looks good. You are the best, girlfriend. It's just you and me, baby. Let's go. How are you doing, my dear? I could just cry for these people. So did you know that it was this Russian couple that they were at the competition there in Wichita? There was about 180 skaters there, I think. That was from January 20th to the 26th. And then the couple, I think it's Vadim Namor and Evgenia Shinkov. So they're a couple that were the world champs in figure skating pairs back in 1994, the same year as Nancy Kerrigan, Tanya Harding. No, I haven't heard who was on that plane. So they're not really announcing it. I just switched over from the active press conference that's happening right now. But that couple, of course, the information is out, and there's a lot of articles, People Magazine amongst a dozen others. So they have a son named Max. I think he probably goes by Max. I think it's Maxim is his full name. Naumov. I believe they're all Russian, but they might live in Boston. They're part of the Boston Skating Club or the Boston Skating Community or both. And I think this couple has been married since at least 94. My husband and I got married in 92. And their son, Max, is 25, which our oldest child is about to be 23. So similar ages to me and my husband. I don't know if they're a tiny bit younger or the same age or a tiny bit older, but right around there. Anyway, just devastating. So there were about 180 people at the competition there in Kansas last week. And then on the 27th and 28th, there was about 150 people in the camp. So absolutely horrific. So I titled this, Anna, like straight down the rabbit hole and then some, basically, because as soon as it happened, I wasn't being suspicious, but as soon as I saw the footage of it, and I'm just going to speak very bluntly, I don't care if I get taken off YouTube. You can't hold back with this kind of crazy. Oh, but let me do say everything I say is simply my opinion for the sake of hoping to start a conversation, open up a discussion, learn something. Everything that I say, I hope, is educational. And all my videos are made for YouTube. It's an entertainment platform. Please make sure you're still subscribed if you are subscribed. And if you're not, consider it. And turn on your notification bell to ring and share a video of mine with somebody that you think might like it. How do I have 2 likes and only 1 visitor? Somebody might have had to switch out for a minute or run or whatever. That's all right. I appreciate all my viewers. I especially appreciate the commenters because it helps keep the conversation going. but it's fine if people are too busy or, for whatever reason, they don't participate in the chat. That's fine too. I am extremely appreciative of every single viewer, whether you hit that like button or not. But if you hit the like button, it helps. If you sub up, it helps. I do have some Cash Apps that I'll put in the description. I haven't done that until just recently. But, I'm trying to make a go of this so that I can really devote myself. So where was I with, as soon as I saw the footage of the helicopter flying into the American airline commercial airplane, I thought that doesn't look like an accident to me. That looks very deliberate. And again, this is my opinion. This is my perspective. And I'm just going to tell you my impressions. And I think that, it's risky because I'm going to sound like a serious conspiracy nut job. But I think there's a lot of weird crap going on right now, and that we've got to pay attention. We've got to be hyper vigilant. So when it happened, and I thought, it reminds me of the airplane crashing into the Twin Tower. And I was in Seattle at the time, and we all thought that couldn't have been an accident, right? I mean, you'd see the tower right in front of you. I think people were speculating right off the bat that maybe the pilot had it on autopilot and got up to go to the bathroom or something. But, they have a co-pilot. Anyway, then the second one crashed. And I think a lot of people still tried to suspend their disbelief, like maybe it's just a weird fluke. And 2 airplanes accidentally flew into the towers because they didn't see them there towering in the skyline. It's sort of like running into your refrigerator in the kitchen. You're not going to do it. It doesn't matter what your situation is. You're not going to run into something that big. And I think when you're a pilot, a Black Hawk pilot or commercial pilot, you know how to fly. And the air traffic controllers, they know what they're doing too, despite the fact that there'd been a bunch of firings recently. Valerie Curto, it's extremely sad. It's extremely sad. So I want to be careful. I want to be just honest about my thoughts and feelings, but I also want to be careful because I certainly don't want to be offensive, especially to anybody who lost a loved one in this plane crash or any plane crash or lost a loved one, period. I was extremely emotional today when I took my dog for her cancer treatment. Extremely emotional. At first thought that maybe the pilot had a heart attack on 9/11. Right. And then the airplane that crashed into the farmland in Pennsylvania, I think people were wondering about that. And right away, I was like, no way, man. There were people on that plane who tackled the hijackers and forced them to crash because they knew they were going to pass away anyway, and they didn't want to be another missile. So airplanes are like missiles. Cars are like missiles. Helicopters are like missiles. It makes my head hurt. And so for this to happen anywhere in the world, a Black Hawk chopper and a commercial airplane anywhere in the world is extraordinarily unlikely. For it to happen in the USA is beyond unlikely. And for it to happen right there in Washington, D.C., I don't think it is possible without serious orchestration. That's my opinion, and nobody will ever change that opinion, no matter what is ever discovered or not discovered. That airspace above Washington, D.C. is heavily trafficked and highly regulated. So for this to happen right there is insane. And for it to happen on the 10th day of the new administration is also insane. So my first thought is all of that. And I'm thinking, Russia? I don't know. And then again, 9/11 just kept going through my mind, and terrorism. And then for some reason, Tanya Harding and Nancy Kerrigan started going through my mind, and I started looking into that. I was like, what year were they competing? I just had this weird sixth sense about it. So they were competing in 1994. That was the year that everything went sideways, right? I was living in Portland, Oregon that year because I moved in the spring of 94. And spring of 94, I think, is when the FBI had their 11-hour interrogation with Tanya. So interesting, too, that Nancy Kerrigan happened to be from Boston. Like, so some things might be coincidental, but not everything can be a coincidence, right? Hey, Helby, and I'm curious what you're thinking over there across the pond. It's overwhelming, isn't it, Valerie? All of this last 10 days and prior to that, I think, has been insanely overwhelming already. And it's just one thing after another. It's just like a complete and utter dumpster fire poop fest. And a lot of distractions. And then yesterday they were trying to get the Grim Reaper to be in charge of all of our health. Like, hello, I'm pretty sure the brain is all eaten up and that all that's up there is a dead worm, right? I mean, isn't that what he's told everybody? And isn't that what seems abundantly clear? And then today they're trying to get Kash Patel through. And could he look any more psycho? Like, he takes the whole Charles Manson eyes theory to a whole new level. Kash Patel eyes. He's like a cartoon. It's kind of like a cross between Charles Manson and that snake from the Jungle Book. I mean, all of this whole thing is like a cartoon. Donnie looks like, I don't know, a grimacing hamburglar Ronald McDonald, although I don't think he'd qualify for the job. I don't think he'd qualify for any of those jobs. Like, he is so freaking weird looking, you guys. Have you seen him today? Like, I don't know if he won't let people touch his hair or what, but like his comb over is not combed over. He's a complete lunatic. And I already knew that, but it really shows just in his person, even if he is keeping a sock in his mouth, which he could never do anyway, right? They saying that they could not see the helicopter, see in helicopter. So the helicopter is extremely agile, and it went straight for that airplane. I'm sure you've seen the footage, right, Valerie? It made a straight line into the airplane. We just starting the new year. Oh my goodness. It's shocking what happened. It's beyond shocking. It's unreal. And so right now doing the press release or the press conference that the authorities are doing, they started out with a bang. And to me, they sounded really, really threatening. Like, we are going to leave no stone unturned and we're going to find out exactly what caused this. And I say threatening in a good way, because not everybody can be controlled by money and fear, which I think a lot of people in charge right now are completely controlled by money and fear. I think a lot of these fools are getting paid off. I'll just say it. I'm not going to hold back because we can't afford to. We can't pretend that they're not setting up Guantanamo Bay to be a concentration camp, you guys. We can't pretend that that's not happening because it's already happening. I heard that Elon made the head of air traffic control quit about 10 days before this. Missed what you said. Okay, so let me read to you something that somebody just sent me that says a lot, okay? This is actually from Twitter. So they sent me a screenshot. Andrew is the original post 13 hours ago, new YouTube channel called Andrew. Prevented, ? You did this, and tags at Real Donald Trump. On your second day, you 1, fired the head of the Transportation Security Administration. 2, fired the entire Aviation Security Advisory Committee. 3, froze hiring of all air traffic controllers. And 4, fired 100 top FAA security officers. And then he put a post of the real Donald Trump that says the airplane was on a perfect and routine line of approach to the airport. The helicopter was going straight at the airplane for an extended period of time. It is a clear night. The lights on the plane were blazing. Why didn't the helicopter go up or down or turn? Why didn't the control tower tell the helicopter what to do instead of asking if they saw the plane? This is a bad situation that looks like it should have been prevented. And then all caps, not good, 3 exclamation points. At this point, when this was posted last night at 11:19, it already had over 1,000 likes and over 300 retweets. And then Ken Blackwell said something. I can't see his whole comment. The courts must recognize this program. Blah, 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 blah. So, yeah, it looks like there was a post before it from Obama saying, Michelle and I send our thoughts and prayers. I'm really sad for everybody on that plane. It probably happened so quickly that they don't even know what happened. I'm really sad for all their friends and family. I'm really sad for my son and his wife, who, like I said, they live right there on base. And I don't know if they were outside and saw the explosion or if they heard the explosion, but they were eyewitness to the entire night once it happened. And they said it was just awful, absolutely awful. So, yeah, I find it shocking that this couple happened to be the world figure skating champs from 1994. If you remember, in 1994, neither Nancy Kerrigan nor Tanya Harding won the Olympic gold medal. It was Oksana Bayul, if I'm saying her name right. She was a very unknown 16-year-old from Ukraine, from the Soviet Union of Ukraine. In 1994, it was considered the Soviet Union. And so she won the gold, and Kerrigan won the silver. I forget who won the bronze. And I don't remember if Tanya came in fourth. I just remember her shoelace and how pathetic that was, her bootlace. And, you know, at the time, I really made fun of her and slammed her for it. After I saw that movie, I, Tanya, I have a lot more compassion for her and what she was dealing with. Not giving her an excuse to have been involved in that crime against Nancy Kerrigan, but it appears that she wasn't involved. She probably suspected Jeff Gillooly, her icky husband, and his weird ass friend, but I don't think she knew anything. Maybe she figured it out. I think if she had known anything, that she would have been under arrest. And I don't think she was ever under arrest. I know she got in a lot of trouble, but I don't think she was ever put in prison. But that 11-hour interrogation, I think just that fact of an 11-hour interrogation speaks volumes, that she wasn't cracking until that 11th hour, and then she finally cracked. So she probably at least knew after the fact, if nothing else. And I think in that movie, I, Tanya, they kind of probably allude to that. I don't remember. It's been a while since I've seen it. Anyway, Trump is blaming this on Biden immediately. And I immediately blamed it on him and his friend Vladdy. Like, seriously, I did. I'll admit it. But how on earth he can try to say that it's their fault when even if the Democrats had policies that were bad and led up to it. He's the one in charge right now. He's been in charge for 10 days. He's done a whole house cleaning. He's fired everybody. He's been hiring freaking Darth Vader and the Grim Reaper and every other freak that he can find to scare the bejesus out of us Americans and the world. In my opinion, that's what he's trying to do. He's out for blood. He's out for blood. But I really wonder, with all of the other victims on the plane, there were some Olympic hopefuls on that plane and their parents, in addition to that couple that I think was the coaches and the parents of Max. So their son, Max, if you haven't heard already, he's like 25 years old. Thank goodness for him, he was not on the plane. And I was like, well, that's weird. Where was he? Because he was at the competition in Wichita and he did very well. I think he got first place. I'd have to go back and look, but he did very well. They think the last thing that his parents said to him when they were saying goodbye was that we're very proud of you, son, which just makes me tear up. Anyway, he left Monday. So what's today? Today is Thursday the 30th. So what was Monday? Like the 27th, because that was the first day of the camp. The camp was the 27th and the 28th. And the coaches did the camp. Yeah, that's the 27th and the 28th. And they were, I don't know if they were judges at the competition. They were there for the competition. Obviously, their son Max was competing, but that was from last Monday, the 20th, all the way through Sunday, the 26th. Rachel Smith, hello, hello. The White House is full of comic villains. I know, I agree. I absolutely agree. I could let the doggos in, but I don't want to be worrying about a bunch of stuff. I apologize for the barking in the background. They should be chilling out. They freak out every time there's something outside. Squirrels! That's the dog. Squirrels! In my opinion, it was a mob hit. Isolated target attack. Whoever commissioned the Black Hawk to be there should rot in jail. I've been skating daily before and after surviving necrotizing pneumonia. Wow. Squirrel says, listening in while I scour my computer looking for the picture of garbage bags from when parents allegedly cleaned up after the kids, talking about Kylie Rodney. Good. Anyone remember what I'm talking about? I'm struggling to find it, but I know I've seen it. Did you see the picture, Shan, that Imprint posted of Kate Cunio's, I think it's her Instagram profile picture? I screenshot it, so I'll make a community post. It doesn't look like Kate Cunio. It almost looks more like a Kylie kind of vibe. She's aged well the last 2 years. She looks like an Earth mama. She looks really pretty, really relaxed, and it's just kind of wild. It doesn't seem like the kind of vibe she had before, and it's only been 2.5 years. But when you lose a close friend, that brings you maybe to a lot of soul searching, especially if you were part of some sinister plan that you knew about it before, during, or after, which I'm 1,000% convinced that everybody there knew about it before, during, and after. So much like Sharp Objects. I'll say it once again. Have you guys seen it? Shan, have you seen Sharp Objects? Because you need to see it to put that template in your head for Truckee. And it is also the perfect template for Delphi. I just realized that yesterday, because the man, Ron, whatever his name is, whose property the girls were found on, he was a farmer. I want to know what type of farm, and I want to know how big. But the family in that fictional Sharp Objects, they basically own the entire town, and they're hog farmers, and no one will say boo about anything they do, because money and employment and social stature and all of it. which I think is a lot of what's going on in Truckee. I think it's a lot of what's going on in DC, to be quite frank. And Shan, I'll just warn you because I don't want to offend you. And I know you and I are at completely different polar opposites with that, but I am just, I just can't. I can't even say his name. I'm just calling him Donnie or other things that aren't as nice. So I just try to restrict it to Donnie for now. I think he's an extraordinarily bad actor, and I think that he's got something to do with this terrorist attack. I really think him and Vladdy, and maybe I'm in left field, maybe I'm completely mistaken. I hope to be proven wrong. I really do. I just don't think it could happen without a green light, just like what happened in Idaho could never happen without law enforcement giving a green light. So, yeah, so let's see what else. Anna B says, I remember. I do not watch, nor will I watch that fraud after all the drama and nonsense she spewed. Thank you for saying that, Shan, because I have a hard time too, but I still have her in my feed, and I'm glad that I do, just for things like catching that photograph of Kate Cuneo. But yeah, I try to be nice in my comments with her, but I agree with you 100%. I think a lot of what she spews is crap, and that she is pretty out of control. But then on the other hand, sometimes she spews some really good stuff. So it makes your head spin. In my opinion, it's some good stuff, and in my opinion, it's a lot of crap. The imprint is no better than A for J. Well, she's probably a supporter of AJ, right? I mean, and you just can't help but wonder if they're paid. If they're just volunteering their time or if somebody's paying them. I always thought the imprint was strange. Yeah, and that other one, I can't even remember her name. Was it Pam? Was her channel a squirrel lady or something? Not the nice squirrel girl, not her. The one that said that she lived in Truckee and she was all squirrely. And we all tried to be nice to her, but she was really hard to handle. High maintenance, to put it nicely. Yeah, the imprint, she says she was trafficked. And I tend to believe her because, yeah, she has a lot of strange characteristics about her as a content creator. And Anna B says, I feel the same way, Jazz. Rachel Smith says corrupt media is blaming the plane. well, the Black Hawk chopper is the one who would be with the Hawkeye with the skills and the equipment to turn on a dime. So I'm not buying that for a second. A commercial flight, they're not going to be able to see 360 around their airplane. So I'm going to guess that the way that the helicopter went straight to him. It didn't zigzag or curve. It was straight. You got to watch the video if you haven't already. It was a strike, in my opinion. And I'm not convinced. I don't know. I don't know the technology. I'm not convinced that there was anybody in that chopper. Like, can it be flown remote control like a drone? That might sound a little out there, but the military can do just about anything. Things that we don't think are possible for them. Anna B says, Shari Shan, I love you. Black Hawk, in my opinion, is at fault. That plane was preparing for landing. Yeah, the plane was preparing for landing. And yeah, it's a very short landing strip. And I think you have to fly parallel to the river, to the Potomac River. And so all of the people involved in flight and in the airspace, all of the folks, the air traffic controllers as well as the pilots, they all know that airport. They all know that airspace. Plus it's Washington, D.C. Plus you're going to be on even higher alert because of like the weird drones up in Jersey. Even higher alert because of the alleged assassination attempts. Even higher alert because 10 days with the new administration. I mean, that's why I'm suspicious of Donnie, because he's in charge. He's in charge. He's the mob boss, basically. I think it's likely the three gents on the chopper were not paying attention. I have a hard time. Like, so the thing with corruption, the only other option, if people aren't going to just say, yep, we're corrupt, you busted us, you got us, caught us red-handed. The only other option is to say, well, we're just completely stupid and we don't have a clue what we're doing. So I don't think that they're going to have clueless wonders flying a Black Hawk chopper over Washington, D.C. on the 10th day of the new Trump administration. And Shan says, I love you too, Anna. Love, love, love. That's awesome. Highly unlikely says, who was on the plane? So right away, I was in a live chat with Boston Brian. That's funny, since a lot of these people were from the Boston Skating Club. Blunt Politics with Boston Brian. I really enjoy his style and his work. So people in the chat started mentioning about the crash, and I immediately opened up another screen and looked at it. And then, of course, pretty quickly, JLR was on it. I still don't know what JLR was saying, but he had a 3.5-hour live. And it became pretty clear that people in the chat were saying, and I thought it was abundantly clear, that somebody important was on either the plane or the chopper. And, to me, that's really sad. It's like everybody is important, but I knew what they meant. Somebody of political influence or that type of thing. So I don't know if they were referring to the Russian couple that were the coaches at this event in Wichita. I can try to say their names again. Sorry. Ekateria Gordieva, something like that. And then Sergei Grinkov. So they're a married couple that won the World Championships in 1994 for, ice skating in pairs, figure skating. And so they were at this event, this competition in Wichita from January 20th to the 26th. Their son, Max, did very well at the event. He won some type of award. I don't know if it was like the best in show or what, but he did very well. But he flew out on Monday. Thank goodness. He was not on the airplane, their son. I don't know if that's their only kid, but it seems like it. And then they stayed to do a training camp on Monday and Tuesday, the 27th and the 28th. So there were about 180 people there for the competition in Wichita, and then turned into 150 for the camp. So fortunately, Max had flown out on Monday, the 27th. But how sad for him to lose both of his parents in the blink of an eye. So to answer that question, they're not releasing the names yet that I know of other folks on the plane. They've said that I think like 8 people from the Boston Ice Skating Club were there on the plane, and that they said coaches, parents, and Olympic hopefuls. So I'm pretty sure that the coaches are the couple that I mentioned. And so when they won the figure skate, the World Championship of couples figure skating in 1994, it's interesting because not only was that the same year as Tanya Harding and Nancy Kerrigan's big thing, but it was also the year that Oksana Bayul, and I'm not sure if I'm saying her name right, won the gold for Ukraine that was part of the Soviet Union at the time. So I know that the Olympics, gold medals, and especially ice skating and gymnastics are notoriously powerful entities within world politics, and especially Russia, right? That's not just me that thinks that. I mean, that's basically a fact, isn't it? And then it's interesting too when you remember that Ivana was a skier. I was going to say skater, but no, I think she was a Olympic hopeful snow skier. I don't know if she was like a speed skater, like downhill, but and I'm going to get confused. It wasn't Ukraine, was it? It was a different country that she represented that was communist at the time. So she married her friend or her coach. What country was Ivana from? Come on. Austrian, Czechoslovakia. She was from Czechoslovakia, which is no longer a country. That's why I was getting confused. So yeah, I used to get a lot of my supplies to make jewelry with from Czechoslovakia. So I was devastated when they were no longer a country. All that awesome Czech glass, no more. So so then they became, I don't know. I don't know the politics of what Czechoslovakia became. Part of Russia, maybe? That's just a guess. But she married her Austrian coach so she could have Austrian nationality status and a visa. And then she moved to Canada and they got a divorce a couple of years later. They say they never consummated the relationship. They were just friends. It was just so she could get away from the communism. And then she married Trump and the rest is history. And yeah, let's see what else you guys are saying here. I think there's more to come out about what happened. Oh yeah, I think a lot will come out. Nothing has come out yet, and it'll take a while. I still want to know what happened in Indiana with that traffic stop gone bad that the January 6er Matt Huddle was unalived by a police officer, by a deputy in Jasper County, Indiana. And I don't think we'll know for a long time what happened there. When there's investigations, they don't let much, if anything, out until the end, typically. Kamikaze strike, Rachel Smith says, and I agree, it could have been controlled by non-humans. Wow, AI. Oh my goodness, Rachel Smith. See, I don't know that much about it, but I believe it. I believe it. Kamikaze is exactly right. Kind of like the Cybertruck in front of the Trump Tower in Vegas and the white pickup truck that ran people down in New Orleans on New Year's Day, right? Like you would call both of those kamikaze. If, like with the guy, Matt, what was his name? Livelsberger, the one in the Cybertruck. I'm not 100% sure that he was alive when he got there. Like that Cybertruck could have driven him there already passed away, right? Like that's entirely possible because those things do that with their AI. And they're going to have all kinds of surveillance cameras inside the vehicle as well as outside. So those surveillance cameras are probably going to be like all the Kylie Rodney surveillance cameras that we never see or hear about, or all of the Idaho 4 surveillance cameras that we never see or hear about, in my opinion. Squirrel says 6 members of ice skaters and their families is all I know of on the plane, but wasn't it like 60 people? It was 60 passengers, 4 staff, and then 3 people allegedly on the Black Hawk. So 67 altogether. And I think they've only recovered maybe around 30 out of the river. I don't know. I mean, it's only 8 feet deep, the Potomac River there. So hopefully they'll find them all. But rivers move fast. I mean, they might not find them all. I hope that they do. It's impossible that the helicopter didn't see the plane. Thank you, Annabise. See, I don't even know that much about helicopters. They've always scared the bejesus out of me. I don't think I've ever been in one. When I was younger, I wanted to go in one, but I don't think I'd ever go in one. Even like going to Hawaii, and you can rent, you can pay for a helicopter tour of the volcanoes. And I've always thought that sounds like a good way to die in like a Flintstones episode, right? Where your chopper crashes right into the inside of the volcano. No, thank you. And yeah, going inside a volcano is never a good idea. Come on. People have a death wish. I am not kidding you. And I apologize for laughing, but sometimes we got to laugh with all of this heavy, heavy crap. So yeah, squirrels, to answer your question, 6 members of ice skaters. I think it was 8 altogether, but that's probably counting the 2 that were the coaches that they've already announced, that those 2, the mother and father of Max, who won the world figure skating championships in 1994. So I'm curious if skating competition has anything to do with what happened. I mean, that would be crazy, but that's like getting back into things like the conspiracy theories with Aaliyah and Amy Winehouse and so many others, Tupac, and Biggie, or we can go to Seattle over there in the grunge scene, where people systematically take out the elimination so they can be the darling of whatever their genre is. So it's nothing new to try to whack your competition in the knee with a freaking lead pipe. Like, that was what was so weird about the thing with Nancy Kerrigan, was it was like, yeah, that's a metaphor, right? Like, you're not supposed to actually do that. Like, I mean, it was just so obvious. It couldn't have been more obvious. Like, it didn't matter who hit her in the kneecap with a lead pipe. It's obvious that it's a competitive thing when she's an ice skater and she's leaving the rink and it's just a few months before the Olympics. I mean, come on. These people can be so obvious. Remember the OBS, the 2 OBS. Be objective, be observant, and then there's a third one you have to throw in there. Don't miss the obvious. Objective, observant, don't skip over the obvious. It's really easy to skip over the obvious, or just to be like, well, that's so obvious, come on. But no, you need to account for the obvious as well. So yeah, like 67 people, Shan, to answer that question. I'm off to run shenanigans with my boy. Have a blessed and productive day, you all. Love to you, my girl. Why would they target figure skating people? Anna B's, because they're ridiculously competitive and they want that freaking gold medal when the Olympics come around again. I don't know. But I'm so glad you asked that question, because I'm thinking that the couple that won in 1994 may have upset their country with some things that might have been interpreted as a lack of loyalty. Like, maybe they're American citizens. Maybe they live in Boston. I don't know. Maybe their son Max was going to be on the Olympic team for America, right? That would make sense to answer that question. So thank you for the super obvious question, because again, I was doing exactly what I said don't do, skipping over the obvious. Bye, Shan. Have a great day. J.R. Nana Boomer, love and light. Mercifully, I don't believe anyone on the plane knew it was going to happen. Yes, and I think it happened so quickly. But then think about their family members who were at the airport waiting for them and saw that fireball and thought, please don't let that be them. I know for a fact that there was a husband of one woman that was on the plane, and he had just gotten a text from her that said that they're landing, and he was at the airport waiting for her. And then he went public and he said something like, I hope that they're pulling her out of the water right now. I hope that they're rescuing her right now. And I don't think anybody was able to be rescued. That water was so freaking cold. So freaking cold. Oh, sorry. My goodness. I hate the pop-ups on the computer. Rachel Smith says, thanks for going down the rabbit hole. I'm going to skate now on the only outdoor regulation ice hockey rink in California. Oh, Rachel, what an honor to have a skater here and to have you duck out to go skating. That is radical. And yeah, you got to stick to it. You can't let anything interfere with your plans to do it, right? Otherwise, you'll never get it done. I know how that is. I was about 8, went up in a Los Angeles County police helicopter with my dad, some kind of county event. IMAX has a helicopter flight, which feels real. Yeah, I've done some cool IMAX stuff, like at the, I think it's called California Dreaming, the ride at the new Disneyland thing right across the street from Disneyland called California or something like that. I remember they had like a hang glider and some other things where you're like flying, and they even have like aromatherapy. So you're like flying over the orange acres and acres, thousands of acres of orange trees, and you get the smell, the aromatherapy of the orange blossoms, and it's really cool. And the wind, and it really feels like you're doing it. And I get motion sick, so I have to be careful because, yeah. They moved to Kansas in the 90s. Wait, the Russians? The Russian couple, Rachel? Are you kidding me? They moved to Kansas in the 90s? Because I thought that they were just in Kansas for that thing. It sounded like they were maybe part of the Boston skating community, like the Boston Ice Skating Club or something like that. But yeah, if they won an award representing Russia and then they bailed, that could be interpreted as a big slap in the face to some egomaniac, right? That whole thing with the loyalty, man, like people are so controlling. It's horrible. It's absolutely horrible. People are free to move around the world, and if they're not allowed to move around freely, that's considered like kidnapping, like corralling somebody so that they can't move around freely is essentially what kidnapping is. So even if you're doing that metaphorically, politically, you're holding people hostage, which I know in Russia that's a thing, but that's not a thing here in our country, and better stay not being a thing here in our country. Yes, they run a training camp for juveniles there in Kansas. So they live in Kansas. They're not in Boston. So I'm curious what they were on the airplane for going to Washington, D.C. But yeah, if they're professional skating coaches running a training camp, they probably travel a lot internationally as well as in our country. So yeah, they could be seen as abandoning Russia, right? I mean, I wouldn't see them that way because you're free to live wherever you want to live. And when you're raised as an American, we're brainwashed into thinking that, right? Wow. That is wild. Yeah, I've always thought Kansas would be a nice place to live other than the tornadoes, just because it's pretty inexpensive. Well, and right now you got the Kansas City Chiefs getting ready for the Super Bowl. I mean, there was that whole thing last year with the three people that froze to death in their friend's backyard, like friend, right? Um, and their football team was doing really well last year too, which there was a game that day, and I'm sure that it was like a lot of excitement, and they overdosed, it sounds like, on the substances that that friend made. He was some kind of chemist, maybe maybe a chemistry professor, but he'd been a chemist of his own designer rug since high school, allegedly. Vlad, Don, just need just need small favor. Don, sure, buddy, I'm here, whatever you need. Kansas City Chiefs are in Missouri. Oh, thank you. You're right, Anna. I know nothing. I don't pay attention to football, in case you couldn't tell. Because, yeah, Kansas City is like Missouri and Kansas. Like half of it is Kansas, half of it's Missouri. So thank you for straightening me out, my dear. I love being fact checked. I'm serious. I want to be accurate on my show. I don't want to be over here in left field. That's silly. Unlike Zuckerberg or some other people that get really offended if you fact check them. No, please fact check me. And some things are open to interpretation too. So you could argue both sides. Oh, you live here, Annabese. That's awesome. That's totally awesome. I bet you're excited, right? That's very cool. I mean, I live here in Ohio, and OSU, they just won the big football, the national championships, which that's huge. And OSU is huge for football, but it's not my thing. So, but I can't deny that I feel like it's pretty cool. Like I lived in San Francisco 2 or 3 of the years that I lived there, the 49ers won the Super Bowl. I'd have to look at the records because I lived there like 94 to 96. So maybe they won like a year before I got there and a year after, and once or twice while I was there. And even though I don't pay attention to football, I still thought it was cool, right? You can't help it. I can't help it anyway. Very excited, but I can't talk about it. LOL. Right. You don't want to jinx it. Yeah. And Taylor Swift, I'm sure that the childless cat lady is very excited too. That was wild last year, right? So, all right. Well, what else should we talk about? We're getting close to an hour. I know I have some notes because there were other things I was getting geared up to speak with my crew about before that terrible accident happened last night. And I swear, you guys, I'm probably not the only one. Like, don't you feel like there's some big, literal, explosive thing happening in the news every day, like a distraction, like the fires in California? And I want to go back to some conspiracy theories about those fires in California, because even if some of them were not arson, we know for a fact that some were. And I would say you could almost say it's a fact that some of them were set by MAGA supporters that were trying to monkey wrench the state of California and monkey wrench Gavin Newsom. Because isn't he possibly going to be a presidential candidate in the next election? Isn't that like a rumor on the streets? I don't know. But I could swear the way he smooched Donnie's wife, I thought, is that what's going on? Is that why Donnie hates Gavin? Because his wife doesn't hate him and she lets him kiss her even when she's got a wide brim hat on. She doesn't use the hat to defend him away. She just tips back and he can just lay one right on her, and she lays one right on him back, right in front of her husband, or literally right behind his back. Okay, I'm done. Let's see. anything about Brian Koberger. I agree. There is many things going on. Thanks for asking, Anna. There is stuff going on with Brian Koberger, and my brain is like a split pea soup trying to think about it. I know Jules of All Trades did a good one that's probably about 20 minutes long. Maybe I'll put a link to it in the description, even though I haven't watched it yet. She's usually so fact-based and so right on the money. I have watched a few other content creators talking about some of the real current stuff. So didn't Koberger's attorney win something in court? Did they get they didn't get a win to throw out the IGG evidence, did they? But like they're maybe building the foundation to get there, it seems. They had a big win in a hearing, I think, in the last 24 or 48 hours. Do you guys know? Fill me in. Well, Newsom is definitely handsome. He's tall. That's what's funny, Anna. He's 6'3". Donnie says he's 6'3", but even with his super tall MAGA hat on, the other guy at 6'3" towers over him. So I've never believed that Donnie was 6'3", but when he's standing next to Newsom, and he probably has lifts in his shoes. Like that was one of the things when he was shot at in Pennsylvania and his shoes flew off and he wouldn't leave until he found his shoes and put them back on his feet, which first of all, in a real assassination attempt, people do respond sometimes in a bizarre manner and an unexpected manner, like Jackie Onassis next to JFK started grabbing the pieces of his trigger warning, the pieces of his noggin that were on the convertible. That was unexpected. So yeah, I could say, sure, maybe he was grabbing his shoes because it was just like a reflex to being shot at and he didn't want to be barefoot. But he was allegedly like running away from the shooter and the Secret Service was trying to protect him from the shooter, which makes no sense because they had this really short woman between his face and the shooter, allegedly. But anyway, he had to grab his shoes. So yeah, I mean, you don't want to like lose your shoes or step on a rock or something, but in a real life and death emergency situation, you're not even going to be thinking about your shoes. You're just going to be thinking, get me the hell out of here. And your Secret Service isn't going to be like, oh yeah, let's get your shoes before we go. They're going to be like, chop, chop. Keep going, keep moving, right? Trump is not 6'3". Anna Bees, you don't believe the internet? Google it. Google it. He's also got an IQ of 156, I think, according to Google. I don't think his IQ is even half that. And he's definitely not 6'3". He's maybe 5'11", maybe. Yeah, I'd be curious. I mean, his daughter's tall. Melania's tall. Ivana was tall. Ivana was 5'11". But then women often wear heels too. So you always got to take that into account. But I think he wears heels. That's what I'm getting at. That was my point, in case I hadn't made that clear. Anyway, let me look at my notes about you guys told me about, who was it? Was it you, Annabes, that told me about Portlandia in the last live the day before yesterday with Fred Armistead? I went and checked it out. Unbelievable. I can't believe I hadn't seen it yet. It's hilarious. It's kind of like the Napoleon Dynamite of Portland, Oregon. And man, it just hit me right on the funny bone, having lived there and having been part of that whole like hipster scene. There was that movie Singles about a bunch of single people on Capitol Hill in Seattle that came out back then too. It was really cute. And Reality Bites came out around then, and that was really funny. That was about kids, like young adults in Houston, Janine Garofalo, Ethan Hawke, Ben Stiller. That was one of his first big movies, and Winona Ryder. So that was cute. Singles and Reality Bites, but that Portlandia is hilarious. It's sort of like a mashup of Singles, Reality Bites, and Napoleon Dynamite, right? My husband was 6'4", and I know what it looks like. Yes, I told you about Portlandia. Thank you, Annabise. I love it. I've only seen the first episode so far. I think it was the first one. It was whatever my Roku pulled up. But I plan on binge watching all of it. It's a lot, isn't it? Like 6 seasons or something like that. I don't know how I missed it. But, I guess 4 kids is how I missed it. I've missed a lot of media during my mommy years, which is why I think I'm kind of like delving into a lot of media stuff now, because I can, now that my youngest she just turned 13. So they don't need me for every little thing. 2 of them don't even live in the house anymore. So if everybody lived here, there's no way I could do YouTube. like over Christmas with everybody here, I barely probably got any of my YouTube done. It's amazing I got any of it done. But, you just got to buckle down. You just got to tune stuff out and do your thing. So thanks, Anna, for telling me about Portlandia. That's freaking awesome. That first episode, or the one that I watched, where they go into the restaurant and they want to know about the chicken. Tell me about the chicken. Can we visit the farm? So they go visit the farm where the chicken is raised, because they want to make sure it's raised humanely and everything. And then they fall in love with the farmer, and they live there for 5 years, and then they go back to the restaurant. And then they're like, oh, tell me about the soup. I'm not sure. Maybe I want the soup. It's just yeah, it was like that for a while there, wasn't it? Too freaking funny. There was a cult up there in Seattle. I'm trying to remember the name of the cult. They had a garlic festival. It was north of Marysville. And I made the mistake of going to their garlic festival. I can't remember the name of the cult, but yeah, it was like the garlic cult, basically. It was a bunch of hippies. It reminded me of the whole Portlandia thing, totally. And the names that the people in that cult had. You know what? Maybe if I Google, not that you guys care if you're going to visit the garlic cult, Garlic Farm, North Seattle. So I was going to figure out who the doctor was in Northeast Seattle that was the anti-vaxxer. There are many garlic farms north of Seattle, including family-owned farms. Let's see. We got Mountain Valley, Vashon, Lonely Pines, Great Northern Garlic. Yeah, I don't think they're organized enough to have a website. It was something family. Crazy Hippie Family, maybe? I don't know. Anyway, I was scared to eat their garlic. I was scared to have anything to do with them. I left there pretty quickly. Because I was like, oh, garlic festival, that's cool. I love garlic. And, it was I went there to buy a big garlic braid, but I don't think I even bought one. If I did buy it, I didn't eat it. I remember being very weary of all of their crap. But so one of the things I wanted to share with you guys, and I don't think I have the notes here from it, but I can double check. Maybe I do. I watched the entire 3.5 hours of torture yesterday with the confirmation hearing for the Grim Reaper. I mean, RFK Jr. That man is insane. It was worse than I thought it would be. Of course, we all expected it to be bad, but he just like bald face lied through his teeth. He said a lot of things that made no sense. The Republicans were like treating him like he was a regular kind of person, which he's not. He's more like the Grim Reaper. And then the Democrats, oh man, they were slamming him. They were kind of treating him like he was the Grim Reaper, which I think was appropriate. My guess is that he'll get confirmed anyway, and that's the most frightening thing in the world. Although, with the leadership that we have, even if he doesn't get confirmed, then they'll just put another Hegseth type in there. So it's almost like it doesn't matter. I hate to say that. Oh, it doesn't matter. But just like with Gates, like I was glad that Gates got shown the door, but then the Bond girl, Pam Bondi, I mean, she's not really any better. I fully expect her and Hegseth to have an affair. I bet they already are. In my opinion, allegedly. Oh, it's funny. I thought you would like it. That was hilarious. Going to the chicken farm. And, a friend of mine told me about that part where it's like we paint birds on things. They painted a bird on a bird. And that is super funny. I went to a cult restaurant once. It was so weird. The owner came out to talk with us, and we were so weirded out. So there was like a Hare Krishna restaurant in Washington, D.C. when I was growing up that my parents would take me to because they were crazy hippies and they wouldn't let us eat sugar. And they had goat's milk ice cream there at the Hare Krishna restaurant. So that was like the only ice cream we got unless we were with our grandparents and they'd take us to Baskin Robbins or someplace normal. Child abuse. But yeah, the Hare Krishnas were pretty scary. They had the shaved heads and then the like ponytail that was like down to their butts. And they wore their weird sheet kind of robe outfits. They creeped me out as a little kid. And then, Patch Adams, he had his own little cult in outside of DC at a farm in Virginia called the Zany Ramorsky Farm. I've told you guys once or twice. It's been a long time since I've talked about Patch. And I say it with the utmost respect. I love Patch Adams. And as a little kid that was easily creeped out by these weirdos, Patch was one of the only weirdos that didn't creep me out at all. Not at all. He wasn't really a weirdo. He was extremely smart. I didn't realize he was a doctor. But yeah, he was actually a doctor. He was actually extremely smart. And he wanted to change the world. He kind of invented the concept of laughter therapy. And then he started that Gesundheit Institute, which is still a thing. I think it's in West Virginia. But my mom and him were really close when I was little, and they remained close pretty much her whole life. She passed away a few years ago. And I tried to like email him to let him know that she passed away, but I haven't gotten a hold of him or anything. But yeah, my cute little story about Patch Adams was that when they were making the movie about him, and my mom lived here in Ohio and he still lived there in DC, and they would catch up like once or twice a year with their marathon phone calls. And he would tell her over a few years, I think it was like a period of like 8 years maybe, that he was talking about Hollywood making a movie about him. And she was just like, sure, okay. Like she believed him, but she wasn't getting carried away with it or anything. And then when he told her that Robin Williams was going to play him, that's when she thought he went off the deep end. One sec. I apologize. I just realized I was like glowing from that one pink light. Hopefully that's better. Dang. If it's hard to watch this video because I'm too bright, then just, dull down the lighting. That was crazy. Anyway, where was I? So yeah, when he told her that Robin Williams was going to play him, she thought it was funny too because Robin Williams was like short and kind of stocky and Patch was real tall and lanky. Not that that matters, acting is acting, but Patch was eccentric, to say the least, and Robin Williams was like the shit. So when he told her that, she really got concerned. Like, she really thought, oh, he might need professional help at this point. Again, because that's kind of how he got into the field, was needing professional help and not really being able to find it. Which is what that weird lawyer for Barry Morphew, remember I was reading you Iris Eaton's little biography thing off the internet where she was saying that she was studying psychology and she looked around and nobody in the field was any good at it or cared about anybody. So she got out of that field and went into law, which, yeah, that's where you're going to get a lot of caring people, right? Anyway, I just thought it was funny because my mind was thinking about Patch and how him trying to get professional help when he was self-injurious and seriously trying to end it. He felt like there wasn't that good of professional help in the system. So he decided to become the good help in the system. So, he didn't decide to just abandon it and go into law, because that's not really how you help people. That's how you make money. I mean, in theory, lawyers help people, but it's not a real nurturing kind of vibe. I've worked with a lot of lawyers. I think a lot of people probably get into law because they want to affect social change. They want to change the world, but then it's so brutal and so competitive and so status oriented that you quickly lose sight of your morals, your moral compass, your ethics, what matters, because, everybody perjures themselves in my experience, having worked in the courts. I've seen lawyers, law enforcement, judges, I've seen them all perjure themselves, and they don't care. And they'll put their hand right on the Bible. They don't care. And it's kind of an open secret. It's like, of course, you're not going to say anything self-incriminating. Of course, you're going to deny and say, oh, I don't remember. I really don't remember. Shucks. So I hope RFK doesn't get confirmed. It will be another weirdo. Oh, hopefully one who doesn't have a dead worm in their brain. I mean, he says that he had this brain-eating parasite worm, and then it died. I don't think he reports it ever getting removed or anything. Like, that's really disgusting. And how come I've never heard of anybody else in the world having a brain-eating parasitic worm unless they're deceased? I mean, I've certainly heard of stuff like that people have gotten just from like freshwater swimming and stuff. And yeah, it's creepy AF. But not to be mean, but he's a sick freak. And, I've looked up the thing with his larynx and why he sounds the way he does. And it's like the vocal cords vibrate uncontrollably. It's like spasms. But one of the comedians talking about it last night said he sounds like he just ate a box of rocks. I thought that was hilarious because it's hard to get past that when you're listening to somebody talk about being a leader in not just national health, but global health, world health. And they have a voice like that where, it's sort of like Marge Simpson's sisters, smoking cigarettes for 50 years. I mean, that's what he sounds like. And from the research that I did, Googling it, it looked like he developed that condition when he was about 42 or 43. And I don't remember. I think there was something traumatic in his life a couple of years before that, because I was thinking, like, could there be a connection? But it didn't seem like there was any connection indicated to severe trauma. Yeah. So yeah, I was talking about it in my last live. He was about 14 years old when his father was assassinated in 1968. I think Marilyn Monroe was the first to get assassinated in the early 60s, and then JFK, and then Martin Luther King, and then RFK. And it's just kind of weird to me that Donnie, signed that executive order to open up all those confidential files, but not Marilyn Monroe's. Like, what, he's going to pretend that she did that to herself? Like, that's pretty obvious to me that she didn't, in my opinion. But yeah, I wanted to say to you guys, I wanted to say this in one of my lives, that the sound of the Sharpie when Donnie is signing all those executive orders, it's like they have the mic right by the pen scratching the paper. It almost is like fingernails on a chalkboard. I mean, it's kind of hard for me to hear it, to listen to it. It kind of like hurts my teeth the way fingernails on a chalkboard does. But I thought that was really weird that they did that they were obviously trying to give people that visceral experience of hearing the pen scraping on the paper. And then there was another comedian, I'm trying to remember who it was, no, it wasn't a comedian. It was Luke Beasley, one of the political commentators, who, like me, was saying, there's too many letters in his signature to be just his name. Even if he wrote out the whole thing, Donald J. Trump, he's like going on and on and on with all the zigs and the zags. And it's almost like, is he writing Adolf's last name next to his, like all squished together, hoping that people that he doesn't want to know that he's doing that, he's hoping that they won't notice? Because that's a bizarre signature. Guys typically don't have fancy signatures like that, especially when you have to sign hundreds of things every day. You tend to get a really short, messy signature. You don't go on and on scraping the paper with the Sharpie for like a full 20 seconds with another zig and another zag. Like, ain't nobody got time for that, right? Why do they always have those eyes that look so strange? They are smiling, but not with their eyes. He's got the creepiest looking eyes in the world. He really does look like the Grimace. He is extremely spooky looking. He really looks like a zombie. I mean, he looks like death warmed over. I'll just say it. I'll just be blunt. He's so incompetent. I agree with you, Jazz. MM did not harm herself. Yeah, there's a lot of information about that night. I haven't even done a real deep dive on it, but just, her housekeeper and the telephone calls that she made, and like I think the phone cord was cut. I mean, she would normally unplug her phones so that they wouldn't wake her up, but I'm pretty sure that the phone cord was cut. There's a lot of information that's, wasn't she allegedly having an affair with both of the brothers, RFK and JFK? I mean, that's pretty wild right there. It really made me think, like, when Bill Clinton was president and his affairs went public, like JFK and Marilyn Monroe having an affair and being kind of not so secretive about it was, like, to me, the equivalent of like Madonna having an affair with Bill Clinton and it kind of being an open secret. Or like Taylor Swift and Donnie, right? As if. I hope she doesn't come after me for saying that. I just had to say it. I mean, that's ludicrous, right? Absolutely ludicrous. Hellaby says, yes, agree. Hate the scraping across the paper. Don't you hate the fat thumbs with the letters? Or like when you type in paper and then it like spell checks you and says Piper when you hit the button to send. Anna B says, I think so, both of them. Yeah. It is ludicrous. And it's ludicrous how all of these women that are married to these weirdo dudes, accept the cheating. Like Jackie O, I mean, she deserved better. Melania, I mean, I'm not a fan of hers, but she had like just given birth to Barron when not only does her husband go have an affair with a porn star, but then it gets, like it was bad enough when it happened. What was that, like 19 years ago or something? I forget. They just had their 20-year anniversary, you guys. Did you know that? Melania and Donnie just had their 20-year anniversary maybe a week ago. I think it was just a couple of days after the inauguration. And I thought it was really weird that nobody was talking about it, including them, right? Let's see, when was their 20-year anniversary? I would imagine that they're barely married, right? January 22nd. 20 years of wedded bliss. So they got married in 2005. And I can only imagine how charming it's been for 20 years, right? I mean, that's like almost half of her life. She just turned 60. I would imagine she's a little depressed about both of those mile markers, but hey, what do I know? What do I know? So he's like, how old is he? Is he 78, 82? How old is he? Let's see. He's getting way up there. I think he's going to be 82 at the end of his term, right? It's just so funny because he was always like using ageism against like Hillary and against Biden. Yeah, he's 78 right now, according to Google, unless he has a fake birthday, which he probably does, right? Everything's fake. And what was his birthday? June 14th, because that jumped out at me because it was July 14th that his ex-wife passed away. July 14th of 2022, I believe, when Ivana was found deceased at the bottom of a flight of stairs in her luxurious Manhattan residence. The day before, Don Sr., Don Jr., and Ivanka were all scheduled to start their week-long depositions about his financial fraud that has been the bane of his existence ever since. I mean, they did get those rescheduled and they did go through with them, but that should have prevented him from being a candidate, from even running for office. You got to wonder, like, who the puppet masters are. Like, he's not a puppet master because he's out in the front. He's front center. He's the attention monger. But people like Vladdy, those are the puppet masters, right? And then the guy who's like all about the Project 25, I can't remember his name. Yeah. So I'm glad that I watched the entire 3.5 hours of the confirmation hearing. I was busy working and doing stuff. It was still really painful, and I kept almost turning it off. I was like, I've had enough. I don't need to watch the whole thing. But then I'd be like, well, it's probably almost over, so why not? And yeah, it really sucked the life out of me. It was really like a worm was eating my brain or something. So back to my question from the beginning of this live. Does anybody know what type of farmer Ron Logan from the Delphi case is? The man whose property Libby and Abby were discovered on? The guy who was on probation? The guy who has allegedly confessed to doing it? The guy who had a history of violence towards women and an affinity for tweens, allegedly. Because I'm thinking that he probably had a pretty good, substantial sized farm, meaning that he had money in the bank, meaning that he had political ties, meaning that that case would be more like the Sharp Objects storyline, just like Truckee is along that same storyline. Just, small town, the villains basically own the town and everybody in it, and you can't go against them and be safe. You just can't. You absolutely can't. It's not an option. Plus, if they're smart, like most villains are pretty crafty, I wouldn't say smart or they wouldn't be villains, but they're conniving and they usually get everybody involved. If they can get everybody to have some type of implication in the crime, then that person's probably never going to tell on them because they'd be throwing them own selves. I can't even speak. Them own selves under the bus. I'm trying to talk funny and trying to talk normal at the same time. Them own selves under the bus is what I'm trying to say. There, I got it out. Can't get too creative, right? So the Samoans that passed away with RFK's measles that he spread. Was it measles? Yes, it was measles. It was somewhere around 70 or 80, and a lot of them were kids. And that was part of the questioning yesterday. And he really dodged the questions. He was real gamey and squirrely and didn't really give answers. So yeah, that was weird. And I don't know if it was like 5 years ago, maybe 7 years ago. I'm not sure. But I have a question for you guys. Can you help me with this? And I don't know that we'll ever get an answer, but I want to know how much money was saved when they shut down Medicare payments and all that stuff a few days ago for, what was it, just like 5 or 8 hours? And then they tried to say, oops, we didn't mean to do that, when, yeah, they did. And again, even if it was in error, that's still unacceptable. If you're that stupid that you're shutting that type of thing off, not knowing it, you have no business being in a position of power, having access to that. But my point is that they probably were able to pocket billions of dollars in those hours that the payments weren't being made. So even though the payments would then be made later when they flipped the switch back on, in theory, that 5-hour delay, it's sort of like when you defer payment, that gives them 5 more hours to play with the money. If the Medicare is paying out, like, let's say $1 billion an hour, and you shut it off for 5 hours, so it's backed up $5 billion, it's not going to get caught up and then keep going. It's just going to be behind the 5 billion. Do you follow me? So I really believe that Donnie and all of his, what shall I call them, partners in crime, that they think that any of the money that they're not spending on military or on national security, national health, national education, that when they cancel these things on a federal level, and then they say they want it to go to the state level, but they're not going to send that money from the federal level to the states. Maybe they'll send a little bit, but they're just thinking that then they have access to all that money. Like, they're crooks, they're pirates. And then they want to call the people living on the welfare, they want to call them bums. Excuse me? Who's the freaking criminal here? At least the people that are doing that on the system are doing it legally in the system or they wouldn't be getting it. And a lot of the people that are in the system like that, sure, it gets abused, but for the most part, it's people that really need it. So these billionaires don't need it, but they do. It's like a drug. They are just jonesing for more. No matter how much they have, they're always jonesing for more. It's pretty disgusting. So I probably need to wrap up, you guys. Let me see. I know I got a text from somebody. I've got some stuff going on this evening. Okay, I don't have to wrap up too quickly. But I also wanted to look through my notes because of the things like the YouTube that Carolyn Kennedy made. So not only did she take the time to write a nice little letter to her cousin to tell him what a creep he was and to tell all of us what a creep he was, but then she made a YouTube of herself reading the letter. So what a great person she is. And that's where she talked about putting the baby mice and chicks in a blender to feed his hawks or other predatory birds that he had that he held captive. Like, first of all, unless these are rescues that have like broken wings, like why would you hold wild animals hostage like that? Why would you hold them captive? And then you certainly don't need to blend up their freaking food unless they're babies and you're like giving them the regurgitated food that their mothers would give them. But the fact that he would blend that crap up, man, have the comedians been having a heyday with that. Like the photograph of the hawk flying with its NutriBullet. Or the other jokester, was it Jimmy Kimmel? Or no, it was one on Daily Show who was saying that in their nest they have like little miniature bullets to blend up their meals, and then all of the jokes about his job at Jamba Juice not working out so well. Again, you gotta laugh, right? You've got to. J.R. Nana says, I wasn't paying attention, but Kathy Shank's daughter has a connection with Logan. So confused. I don't know Kathy Shank. Logan, is that the property owner? What did I say his name was? It's escaping me at the moment. Because I know that the guy who owned the property knew the girl's parents. And so that would explain why there was no signs of struggle, because they would have been trusting of him, possibly because they knew him through their parents, right? I don't think I have his name written down handy, and I know I just said it a couple of times, but she is the one who found the paperwork for Richard Allen. Okay, but then Ron Logan. Okay, thank you. So Kathy Shank is the one who cleared Ron Logan. Oh, was she his girlfriend at the time? Because there's a girlfriend now who says that she told law enforcement back then that she thought he did it. And she was his ex at the time. But she said that he was not only domestically violent towards her, but that he was like inappropriately interested in a 13-year-old that he sold a horse to. I just watched a video about a man who was so terrible, the whole town hated him. Long story short, he was red rummed by the town. They all said they didn't see anything and didn't know what happened. It's not uncommon, Annabise. I mean, that's in the ghetto, that's kind of a thing that happens at parties a lot, right? So when you have things like Tupac or Biggie, nobody saw nothing. Or like Kylie Rodney, nobody saw nothing. No one's going to talk. Snitches get stitches. So Kathy Schenck is the one who found the paperwork for Richard Allen. She was a retired child welfare worker. No, Kathy Logan and her daughter were defenders of Ron Logan. Okay, it sounds like you've paid a lot of attention to the case, J.R. Nana. I, on the other hand, have not. I've only real recently, with this new court filing, gotten interested in it because it seemed like I just kind of got the feeling that stuff was actually true. And I always got the feeling that that case was just crap, because for 5 years, they couldn't solve it in this small town when they had the guy on videotape and audio tape. That makes zero sense. And then especially that he allegedly was like pretty high profile as a pharmacy tech at what, CVS or something like that. So kind of a, a notable member of society. People would recognize him. So then when they'd see the video footage and hear the voice, somebody would put 2 and 2 together. But people who knew Ron Logan said that it looked like him and sounded like him. And to me, it looks like Ron Logan from what I've seen of Ron Logan. And then Ron Logan just happened to pass away from COVID, allegedly, right around, I think, January or February of 2022. And then they arrested Richard Allen later that year, like maybe October. But if Ron Logan had friends in law enforcement, and if his friends were in on it, not accusing anybody of anything. Hey, Fred, what's up? Yeah, I've been on for a little bit, so I was getting ready to be winding down, but not too quickly. I thought it was strange that Kathy Schenck, after 40 years, retired from child welfare right after the girls were found, volunteered to help the task force. That is weird. That's kind of like Kylie Rodney's grandmother, who retired from Child Protective Services right before her case, and then she got reinstated in her old job after Kylie went missing, right? Because that would give her access to a lot of networking and a lot of records and the ability to alter records, allegedly. And didn't Kylie Rodney's grandmother retire and go back to work with child welfare? Look, you and me, J.R. Nana, are right on the same wavelength, aren't we? Yeah. I mean, Child Protective Services, I've known people that have worked with them, and I've worked not with them directly, but with them indirectly. And there's a lot of good about Child Protective Services, but there's also the dark side of Child Protective Services. And they do get accused of having affiliations with trafficking. Even in the P. Diddy case, there's accusations, probably from Allie Carter, that some of the children that allegedly were at the parties, maybe on the table, maybe being used as food serving trays, that some of them were from Child Protective Services, that they were supplied by employees of Child Protective Services. And I don't know that that's true, and it sounds completely far-fetched, but I think anything's possible. So, yeah. Let's see. What else? So, yeah, what size was Ron Logan's farm in Delphi, J.R. Nana Boomer? Do you have any idea? And Anna says that's so gross. There are a lot of similarities to the two cases. The community is very tight, and Allen was an outsider. You mean the cases, when you say two cases, do you mean Kylie Rodney's case in Delphi, or do you mean Idaho 4 in Delphi, or do you mean Sharp Objects fictional in Delphi? But you said yes, so you're probably talking about Kylie Rodney. And see, that's really wild, because I would have never thought of those two as having any similarities, but I believe you. I totally believe you. I want to say that the community around there, like the larger community that they're all a part of, because they were from a different town, not Delphi. I think I looked it up and I think it was about 20,000 people, but I could be confusing that. I could be crossing my wires. I know the town north of Jasper County, Indiana. Is it Hobart, the town that Matt Huddle was from? His town was 20,000 people, so I could be crossing my wires. So Matt Hobart is the January 6er who was pardoned last Monday and then was shot by law enforcement in Jasper County, Indiana on this past Sunday. So not even a week later. But he hadn't just gotten out of prison, I don't think. I think he was released in the summer. I think he served like a 6-month sentence, and then he was on probation, and they were trying to arrest him. And I don't know what they were trying to arrest him for. He had a gun, so maybe it was because he had a gun and he was on parole, on probation. But they're keeping all of that top secret for now. I can't wait to get my hands on the dash cam footage and the body cam footage if they will ever release it. And I would think that they will, because, you know, it's important for them to be transparent, and especially in a case as high profile as that. So usually they'll want to take some time to review it to make sure that there's not things that they need to redact before they release it. So I haven't even made a request for it yet. I thought about it because sometimes if you make the request really quickly, they'll send it to you without even thinking about it. But that's only if they don't realize that it's a big deal. Like this one, obviously they're going to realize it's a big deal. So Kylie and Delphi and all of them, actually, if you look deep into them. So yeah, the whole thing with the theme of corruption, like thinking about that family in Pennsylvania that owned all of the plastics, the DuPont family, and, you know, his compound and his connections that he had with professional sports and all of that. If you turn on these people, they will eat you alive, literally, figuratively, both. You know, there's been a lot of scandal with OSU football, and it was just on the radio today that I heard about, and I need to look it up, an Ohio high school coach and his wife, who are both convicted for coercing 3 teenage boys to have sex with his wife over the years. Absolutely freakishly disgusting. So the wife had already been convicted and sentenced. And then it was just on the news today about convicting and sentencing. Should I look that up so I can share it with you guys before we wrap up? Let's see. Hey, C3PO, how's it going? High school coach and wife. So, an Ohio high school wrestling coach and wife. This article is from a year and a half ago. River Valley High School, dating back to at least 2004. So here's an article from a week ago. Ex-high school wrestling coach convicted in child abuse case, sentenced to prison. Former high school wrestling coach convicted in child SA in Gallia County. I've never even heard of Gallia County. I'm figuring probably up north somewhere, like around Cleveland, maybe. Was sentenced to prison Tuesday. Matthew Huck, who previously worked at River Valley High School, was sentenced to 6 years. 6 years is all he got in prison in a case dating back to 2003, according to a news release from Gallia County Sheriff's Office. I mean, it's just terrible, what these victims have to go through. And then, like, this is 3 victims in 6 years. And these boys are scarred for life. I mean, it's going to haunt them. Prosecutor said Huck pressured teenage boys from his wrestling team to have sex with his wife, Paige Huck, from 2003 to 2016. 13 years, the news release said. This was a creepy sexual fantasy the couple shared with their mutual perversion resulted in the abuse of 3 boys outlined in the criminal charges, Special Prosecutor Mark Weaver said in the news release. Matthew Huck was also convicted of sexually assaulting a teenage girl during a co-ed sleepover in 2004, the news release said. Huck was convicted of 4 felony offenses. Once he's released from prison, he will be required to register as a sex offender for 25 years. 4 felony offenses and he gets out in 6 years? Like, screw that, man. We know that some in the community would have liked to see Huck spend more time in prison, but this negotiated outcome was approved by all Huck's victims. I don't believe it, because they'll say that even when the victims are like, hell no. Special Prosecutor David Kelly said in the news release, we're always ready to take cases to trial, but litigation brings with it the risk of an acquittal and even upon conviction, many years of appeals. This result gives victims both the justice and the closure they want and deserve. I don't agree. I do not agree. Matthew Huck and Paige Huck have since divorced. She is now serving a 10-year prison term for her role in the crimes. What? They're not going to live happily ever after? Going to say night night. It's fast approaching 10 p.m. here. Loved the show today. Oh, you're so sweet. Thank you. Yeah, the Murdaugh family. Let me see. What else have I missed? Huddle is the guy's name, but the town that Matt Huddle is from. 1 second. I'll try to make sure I get all of your things. Matt Huddle from Indiana. So he was shot in Hobart County, which was south of the town. And the town is like right between Gary and the Indiana sand dunes, which I didn't even know there were Indiana sand dunes. Yeah, Hobart. He is from Hobart. I got it right. Woohoo. The brain works sometimes. Not always, but once in a while. Yahoo! That's exciting. Let's celebrate. Kylie and Delphi and all of them, actually, if you look deep into them. Yeah, I know. And there's always like that whistleblowing thing, too. I just realized that a few days ago. So many of these cases have a whistleblower involved. And possibly in Kylie's case, not so much in the fictional sharp objects. And I don't know about with the Delphi case. Allegedly, Kaylee G was going to be whistleblowing in the Idaho case, right? And allegedly, from the way they made it sound, Maddie told Adam everything. And, oh, Maddie, they're going to get you for that. Although I still don't buy that weird audio with that video. So I saw a video a few days ago, you guys, where somebody was saying that whole video was artificial intelligence, and they were breaking it down, like how the legs were like kind of falling apart in the visual. And again, I know that the video cameras do weird things, so that could just be weird, like pixelation. I don't know, but I thought it was interesting that I'll try to remember what video that was, what channel. It was very interesting. Um, let's see. I don't think it's connected, but that they were similar in how they operated. Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. I know. It's not like a big conspiracy that they're all connected, but yeah, there's parallels and things that are similar that they have in common. Um so thank you guys so much for being here. If you watch Delphi After Dark and The Professor, both of them are 100 Delphi. Huh. Oh, they're 100% Delphi? And the Murdoch family, too. Yeah. And I often forget to mention that one because I didn't keep up with it that much, although I did get a little bit into it. That was so sad with Mallory Beach and with the housekeeper and all of it. All of it is just so freaking twisted. So much mayhem. And then also with Micah Miller's case. And last night, Evil CJ, I don't know if I'm saying the name of his channel right, and Justice, Voices for Justice with Danielle, and Veronica Jokester, they all were on a panel discussion last night. I didn't get to see all of it, but I was really happy to see that the three of them were working on something together because they're all very, very dedicated to Micah Miller. And, you know, I think that that big channel with the initials RB, the RB, um, I don't trust him. I think he's full of it. And a lot of the information comes through him on YouTube. I do trust Gavin Fish, and I think that Gavin Fish is probably okay with the RB. But anyway, I really trust Voices for Justice with Danielle and Veronica Jokester and Evil CJ. They all seem very genuine and like they really care about Micah and they care about domestic violence. So very cool that they're putting their heads together fighting for that. Um, the professor, I don't know his backstory, but he and family threatened and now he won't stop. That's great. He's on top of everything, lots of characters, and I'm 5 years behind. I thought you were going to say you're 5 years in. Oh, that's wild. Good for you. Yeah, because once you get threatened, then you know that you're on the right track. And if you back down, that's not going to make you safe. That's throwing gasoline on the fire. Then the bully knows that they can control you. They know that they can scare you. It's a lot like Mika and Joe Scarborough from Morning Joe on MSNBC. I forget Mika's last name, but the married couple that got together on that TV show. And, you know, they were such heroes. And then when they went to Mar-a-Lago and kissed the ring, they really shot themselves in the foot and they made themselves less safe. They made everybody less safe. I understand why they did it because they were scared, but that was a huge mistake. And I hope that they can redeem themselves and undo it, basically. Yeah, you never want to give the bully what they're hoping for, because if they're like most bullies, if you confront them with the truth, they run for the hills with the tail between the legs, right? I'm going to say night night. Okay, I read that one. Thank you, dear. Anna Bees, I don't understand how many people are so sick and obsessed with depraved essay. I know, Anna Bees. It's so seriously disgusting. I think of it more like power and control. I don't think it's so much sexual gratification. And I might be wrong. I mean, there's definitely a lot to be said for sexual gratification and sex addiction, but with crimes and with violent crimes, with sexual violence, it's not about eroticism. It's about power and control. It's about the mind games. It's about the gaslighting. Good night, Anna says to Helby. The U.S. operation plans are broke down territories, ending with the unified commands. I think they protect who they need to at the lower levels. J.R. Nana Boomer, that sounds so conspiracy. Let's talk about that for a moment and then wrap up, because that's a big one. And I can't remember what we wrapped up on last time, but it was something somebody said that was like completely perplexing my mind. I think it was Annie Ruler, and I literally did not understand what she was saying, but it was nighttime and my brain wasn't functioning, so I couldn't even try. I was like, I just got to turn this puppy off anyway. So this time, it's only 5 o'clock. I'm not too tired. I have a minute. Let's try to talk about that for a moment, you guys, and then we'll wrap up. And thanks again for being here. And sorry if I was drowning out with too much light earlier. Hopefully the lighting's better. I don't know. I try to like put shade things over the lights. It's like you want the light, but then you don't want too much light. It's so hard, man. The lights, the camera, the action. The U.S. operation plans are broke down territories, ending with the United Commands. I think they protect who they need to at lower levels. Right, because the lower levels are kind of like, I think of like a chess game, and that's the pawns out front. And your pawns are disposable, but you can't lose all your pawns, because then it's the big guys that are next. You have all the gangs. White supremacy is the most focus. Odinist. Wow, J.R. Nana Boomer. I wonder how Odinism might play in to Project 2025. And I wonder what correlations there are with like the Handmaid's Tale theme. And that's just disgusting. Thank you so much for bringing all this creepy stuff up. Seriously, it's nice to see you. It's been a long time. The gangs are all about money, and they're the ones that have access to get the D and humans roads. Oh, the rugs and the people. Yeah, like the Silk Road. So, like our commander in chief right now, the crazy man, the angry orange man, baby, zombie douchebag. He just pardoned the guy with the Silk Road, the guy who had a life sentence for red rum and dealing rugs and even advertising like red rum for hire on his website. That's freaky AF. I mean, that's all like Jeffrey Epstein kind of stuff. And they're always talking about the Epstein lists. And yeah, release the Epstein lists, please. I don't care if there's somebody that I'll be like, oh, bummer that they're on it. Like we need to know. And I don't think they're ever going to release them, because I can only imagine who's on it. I can only imagine the people that are always threatening to release it, like Marjorie Taylor Greene and the one that she's protecting. The guy who hung out with Epstein for decades. The guy who says, yeah, Epstein likes them young, a little on the young side. He likes the ladies like I do. Oh, and you can't call the female employees beautiful anymore. You get in trouble for that. It's like, why does he have to be such a dirty old man? He's so disgusting. He's married to Melania. Like, she should just smack him upside his head. Not that I support spousal abuse, but come on. Like, he's got Melania and he's checking out the waitresses. Like, give me an effing break. Laura Loomer and all these chicks that he surrounds himself with. Christy Nome. Ugh. Or like I said, the Bond girl, Pamela Bondi. I'm sure she loves being called the Bond girl, right? And I mean, they're not exactly pretty, but for politicians, they are. I mean, politicians are usually pretty like worn out wise people. That's just a nice way to say elderly, right? Um, you know, and the Donnie wants to surround himself with all these Barbies and Kens like Hegseth and Gates. Not that they're good looking, in my opinion, but um, you know, easy on the eyes, like that Hope Hicks, and you know, she was from the previous administration. Who was that young woman that testified against the Republicans, who is in so much trouble? She was going to be in a lot of trouble. I think I have her name handy. I might not. Let me see. You know, was it Christie something? She was like 26 when she started. She was like an intern with the Trump administration in the first administration. And then I think it was after the insurrection that she testified against the Trump administration. And like, I'm sure that they're threatening her and all kinds of stuff now. I think I have her name here. Let me see. Oh, but I'm glad I saw this. Okay, I don't find it here, but did you guys know? Okay, a couple of things. So Jessica Denson, that person who was also part of the Trump administration, who sued him, and then she was part of Midas Touch, and then she split ways with them because she really wanted to go after the whole Amendment 14, Part 3, that disqualifies Donnie from being in the government, let alone president. So Jessica Denson has her own YouTube channel, and she sued Trump, and she won. And her lawsuit is about the illegal non-disclosure agreements. So he had her sign an illegal NDA. She won the lawsuit that not only overturned her illegal non-disclosure agreement, it overturned everybody's illegal non-disclosure agreement. Not to say that he's not still threatening people and silencing people, but it's the same type of thing that Diddy has been doing with the NDAs. And Diddy would have people under the age of 18 signing NDAs, and a person under the age of 18 doesn't have a legal valid signature. So those aren't legal NDAs. But Heather Locklear is related to Trump. I'm not kidding you, you guys. Heather Locklear's grandmother, I think her name is Ann somebody Trump. It's so weird. I just came across this a couple of days ago. I can't believe I forgot to share it with you. Heather Locklear, Trump connection. Her grandmother was a model. So, how the Trumps are connected to Heather Locklear. What? Is this real? It says Heather Locklear tells the president to go to hell, but no, it's in a movie. That's funny. They got my attention, didn't they? That's really funny. There's a whole bunch of articles about that. Heather Locklear, Ivana Trump. Heather Locklear's grandmother. And her first name is Ann. Let's see. So Marla Maples is how they're related. So Marla Maples, I think that her mom might be Heather's grandmother or something like that. But yeah, that jogs my mind that it is Heather Locklear is related through Marla Maples being married to Trump. And also, Tiffany, the kid that he got Marla pregnant with when he was married to Ivana, she was 2 months old when they got married. So that's kind of creepy, like to make your baby mama wait that long. And then Tiffany is going to have daddy issues her whole life. I guess she's gotten a lot of plastic surgery. And I'm sorry, but she's a dog. She looks like a blow up doll to me. I'll just say it. She's gross. And then to find out that she had plastic surgery to look like that, I'm just like, ugh. So, Laura Ann Locklear Maples, the mother of Marla Maples, distant cousin of Heather Locklear. Okay. And she passed away in 2014. So she was only 74. That's not that old. Anyway, so Laura Ann Locklear Maples is how they're related. So Marla Maples, the ex-wife of Donnie, is a cousin of Heather Locklear. Isn't that weird? Sorry, I missed a whole bunch of things. Let's read up with you guys. And yeah, when you're dealing with gangs, then you got the RICO laws. So, you got the RICO laws probably with all of this stuff in the government right now. It's all basically gang activity. And yeah, then the Odinism and how does Elon fit in with Odinism with his freaking salute? Calling that autism. Like, that's such an insult to anybody on the spectrum. Give me an effing break. So I think I told you guys this. I rewatched Dr. Strangelove the other day because I thought about it a lot during the first Trump administration, and I don't think I'd seen it since I was a little kid. And so I watched it a few days ago, and it was as if they had written it over 50 years ago, 60, 70 years ago. As if they wrote it for the Donnie administration. Like, you got to see it, because the funniest thing, if you've seen it, you remember the arm, the spastic arm that the guy couldn't control, kind of like how Elon claims his autistic spastic arm is. I mean, it's not funny, but it is funny in Dr. Strangelove. The gangs are okay. Read all of that. Which president bought H to the country? The politicians and wealthy are the ones that have money and protection. H, do you mean the substance, or are you talking about the humans? I'm not sure what you mean by H, JR Nana, if you want to tell me. The big wigs that get busted are busted because they aren't under the umbrellas. And they're like the fall guys, they're the patsies. It's like a corporation has all the stores and businesses, but they need to fill them with inventory. So the low levels are the vendors that procure from. Anna B says, I think once they jail all the immigrants, they will go after Black Americans, and they will put them to work in the fields for free, modern day slavery. I wouldn't disagree with you, Anna Bees, but yeah, they'll be coming for all of us eventually, especially us women, us handmaids, us breeders. I mean, it's absolutely disgusting, but nobody is safe. Nobody is safe. H, smoking needles. Yeah. So, and ketamine being like an antidepressant now, that just creeps me out, especially after Matthew Perry passing away from ketamine. I saw a billboard today in Columbus near the Easton Mall that was advertising ketamine as an antidepressant. It said for anxiety, depression, and PTSD. And I'm just like, gross. Like, I'm not buying it. It'd be great if there was a simple treatment for anxiety, depression, and PTSD. But then that gets me back into a whole thing with the Darth Vader or Grim Reaper candidate, Bobby Kennedy. My brain is starting to fade, in case you couldn't tell. That the thing about the smoke and the needles, that he thinks, he's made statements in the past saying that like Prozac is responsible for school shootings, you guys, that all the people that do the school shootings are all on Prozac, and basically blaming the antidepressants, and his opinion that antidepressants should be not used. He thinks a lot of these medications should not be used, like ADHD medication. And I'm sure some of them are overused, but that's not for him to decide. That's for patients and doctors to decide together, like what works and what doesn't work. It's just disgusting. And yeah, he tries to say that it was harder to, that not just for him, but other people that he's known too, that it's been harder for them to get off of H than to get off of SSRIs, antidepressants. Like, come on. Like get real. Like, people literally don't overdose on antidepressants. I mean, sure, if you took 100 of them, but you don't accidentally overdose on antidepressants the way it's very easy to accidentally overdose on H. Yes, they are selling ketamine out in the open. And isn't ketamine like what's used to put animals to sleep when you euthanize a pet? I know it's a veterinarian medication, but I thought it was used for euthanasia. All to keep us numb and dumb. I'll look that up real quick before I wrap up. Oh my goodness, I've been on for 2 hours and 10 minutes, and I do need to wrap up. It's getting really late. Let's see. So, pet euthanasia. Ketamine has additional pain relieving effects, makes it preferable to some vets for routine use. Euthanasia of rabbits by IV administration of ketamine. Within 90 seconds after the injection of the ketamine, brain death developed and the heart rate and blood pressure decreased greatly. Well, that's disgusting that they're trying to sell people that substance that caused brain death almost instantly. And then, okay, I need to stop. All right, you guys. Thank you so much for watching. I still have got a handful of folks in here used for pet surgery. And yeah, keeping people numb and dumb and the living dead, right? The U.S. emergency operation plans are what Shan was reading and gave me the epiphany. I could see how the military and all the government agencies are useful to launder and cover a lot for the wealthy. Well, yeah, J.R. Nana Boomer, the Taj Mahal that Trump built in Atlantic City that went bankrupt. I don't know a lot about casinos, but people say that's hard to make a casino go bankrupt. But that the entire time that it was, before it went bankrupt, it looked like it was a money laundering thing. And it certainly seems like, I mean, casinos are great for money laundering. And, you know, I saw a documentary about how basically that Trump Taj Mahal tanked Atlantic City completely. Like, not just that one casino, but it like drove the entire industry into the ground there in Atlantic City. And it was a thriving metropolis prior to that disaster. So yeah, I'm sure he's trying to do the same thing with his meme coins in our country, in my opinion. So let's wrap her up. Thanks so much for watching, you guys. I will work on my lighting. I think part of the problem is when it's light outside, because this is like blackout curtains. And I forgot, when it's light outside, it totally changes my lighting because you get the ambient light coming through. That's why it's kind of like fuzzy, blurry. So my apologies for that. I watched Ozark. Yeah, money laundering is what casinos are for. I tried to watch Ozark. It was a little too violent for me. But yeah, I like that actor, Jason, whatever his name is, Jason Lee. And then the actress, what was the actress's name? She's been in a lot of good movies. She was in The Nanny. She played the Mrs. X in The Nanny. Is her name Laura something? What are their names? Bye. Let me see. Let's see. Laura Linney, Jason Bateman. I can't remember what I said. My brain is fried by now. What are we, like 2 hours, 15 minutes? That's like as long as I can go. Anna B says Bateman. Yeah. Oh, thank you so much, you guys. Good night. Have a lovely rest of your day. I hope that you can stay hydrated and well nourished, well rested, all that good stuff. Let's not get overwhelmed with all this crazy. Let's just try to keep our eyes on the ball so that it doesn't get ahead of us. That's my approach anyway. So love and light. Thanks again. You guys are the bomb.